Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today. We are standing here in Topeka, Kansas, downtown. I think we're the only people in downtown Topeka because of a huge snowstorm that we had. But we're here. We're always here for our live streams, and I appreciate you joining us. It is a little bit frigid out, so I have on my toasty warm Picasso top, my forever favorite Picasso pants, little turtleneck underneath just for extra warmth. So I am prepared for the day and the elements that are going on outside. So this is the first week really that we've get to talk about So Confident 2024. And we are knee deep in making our Japanese top patterns. For those of you who joined for this series for 2024, I really want to thank you. It makes our whole company more successful the more people we have for So Confident. Remember that this Thursday is our very first Q&A, and I will be demonstrating the very signature pocket technique during that Q&A because I did not do it on the video on purpose so that I could do it for you on the Q&A, but it's a lovely free hanging, partially sewn pocket. In this case, I've done a little bit of applique on it. Whether you do that or not doesn't really matter because it's all about the construction of the pocket, which I will be demonstrating on Thursday. So I hope you will join me for our first Q&A. And of course, wear whatever you've made. And if you've already made your Japanese top, we hope to see that too. But we look forward to seeing you then. Stash. I love going into my stash. I had an opportunity a couple of weeks ago to really look at my stash in the vault of Topeka, Kansas. And because we were throwing away old files and it was a day of sorting out, and I got a really good look at, I can do stash for a long, long time. I can tell you that right now. But today's stash piece from my private personal stash collection is this interesting piece of Sherpa on one side, this lovely texture, and the other side is a fantastically wonderful, it's a faux suede, so I guess we could call it moleskin, but it's not like any moleskin you buy at any of the big box stores. This is really good, and it looks almost real, like real suede. There's 3 yards here. I can really see this in a Brando jacket, or even a flat iron jacket, something where you can see both sides. So it's 3 yards. I've forgotten what the width is, but it's pretty wide. So if you're interested in this piece for $50, no shipping domestically, email me at linda@sewingworkshop.com, and the first person who emails me gets this piece of fabric. So thank you, all of you who have been buying my stash. I hope you're enjoying it and not just adding to your stash. I hope you're sewing with it, unlike me, who didn't ever get around to it. So because of the time of year that it is and the kind of weather that we have, this is a day to talk about a very cozy, warm fabric. And we're going to talk about fleece. And behind me are 4 colors of fleece from a new source for us. And I'll talk about the fabric later, but it's an exquisite, if you can say that about fleece. This is the nicest fleece I've ever seen. So, of course, it reminded me of the Picasso Sweatshirt, which was part of our Series 10, So Confident. So the class is an hour-long class tutorial. I'm not going to take an hour today to tell you all about it, but hopefully you will buy that tutorial, or if you have it, if you were a member of So Confident in what would that be, 2021, you have this class. But this hour-long tutorial is very comprehensive about how to turn the Picasso top, which is what I have on, into this really interesting sweatshirt. I love this sweatshirt because it's all raw-edged, lots of interesting elements to it that we've added. It's a fun sweatshirt to make anyway, but these are details that I saw on a sweatshirt. I think it was in Santa Fe or someplace like that in a really nice store. It seems like the higher price the store, the more raw edges there are in the store, which I think is kind of cool. So you know that they're planned, part of the details, part of the whole concept for the garment. I remember the original sweatshirt that I saw was so ill-fitting, it was awful. So I thought, oh, I can make that in the Picasso top and have this high fashion sweatshirt all for myself. So I'm going to tell you about this sweatshirt and talk to you about sewing fleece and how to do some of the details that are in this particular shirt. I'm going to pair it too with a pair of Maison Pants. This is one part of the two-piece pattern called the Maison top and the pants. And so these are like sweatpants in a way. Has the traditional band at the bottom of the leg, nice pockets, and then this pretty wide waistband that has actually a knit elastic on the inside of it. So it's an elastic waist. But in addition to that, it has a couple of buttonholes, and we're using a stretchy shoelace for an additional tie. So it looks just like what you can pay a lot of money for. But the idea of making the top and the bottom in the same fabric is what's happening today. And just this morning, as I came in, sitting on my desk was the latest issue of Artful Home. And here's a top and the bottom in the same color. Not necessarily the same fabric in this case, but you see that all over the place. One of Alex's favorite brands, I'm probably going to mispronounce it, Alex, you might have to help me. Is it Pangaia, or how do you pronounce it?
Yeah, I think Pangaia. Mm-hmm.
Pangaia. They specialize in fleece, sweatshirt garments, in hoodies, sweatshirts, pants, all matching. Jennifer Lopez made the brand famous. So, Jennifer Lopez can do it. Well, so can we. So I'm going to talk about some of the details, though, of the top so that you can do this yourself at home. And on the back wall, I've also paired some coordinating little fabrics. I'll tell you about those as well, that can be used for the patches that go on this garment. So first of all, when you're sewing fleece, obviously there's a very definite right and wrong side, sort of a jersey knit on the outside and a fluffy side on the inside. And those fluffy sides are what really, I think, distinguish really good fleeces from not so good fleeces. And the ones that we have on the wall back here, the back side, wrong side, the fleece side is very soft, very smooth, really luxurious, and it's just going to feel like $1 million on. The Picasso has interesting details to it in and of itself, and so it just lends itself perfectly for the fleeces. But you can see that there's really no shoulder seam per se, that the sleeve is set in to this rectangle in this rectangular way. Otherwise, it's a fairly boxy shirt. There is a seam in the Picasso that I have deleted so that the whole front and the whole back are one piece. But all of that pattern work is in that tutorial of how to turn this into this sweatshirt. It's really not much. It's eliminating a couple of seams, and we've added a pocket. The pocket is, get this up here so you can see it. Try this one more time. I'm limited by not being able to move the camera today. Come on. Okay, here we go. So you can see that there's a pocket, but the pocket bag is actually on the inside, and the opening is here, and it's all raw edged. So in this tutorial, it talks about how to sew this rectangle, slash that open, how to sew the pocket bag to each of those edges in order to make it a real functioning pocket. So raw edges here, the whole bottom is raw edges. You don't have to hem the garment. And we've also added some darts. There's a dart on the sleeve, a dart on the side seam, another dart on this sleeve. Is there another dart? Nope, that's it. 3 darts. We've added some patches, and we've added an interesting neck binding. So the interesting thing about the darts is that they are on the outside of the garment. So in the pattern work, it shows you where to put that dart. It's basically on the back side of the sleeve, on the right sleeve. And on the left sleeve, it's on the front side. So in two different places, depending on right or left sleeve. And the darts are on the outside. And they are slashed open. So there's the detail of the dart. So Alex has a little few second little part of this video that will show you how this is slashed, how this dart is slashed. So if she can show that now, that'd be great. Yeah, so we're using outer fold, and this is what I like to try to keep sort of cutting neatly. I don't know why. We're talking about a dart on the outside of the garment, and here I'm talking about cutting neatly. So it takes some sharp scissors to get all the way down in here. So now I'm just having to snip a little bit at a time. But ultimately this is going to be washed, all roughened up, and it's not going to matter very much how this is cut. Few more little snips. And there we go. We have our cut dart. So you have one dart on the front, one dart on the back, and one dart on each sleeve. What's interesting about the two darts, front and back, is that even though they press open, they are actually sewn with the dart going down. Like that. So after you wash the garment, and this has been washed many times, I wear it all the time, because it's a jersey, things start to curl, and I love that aspect of jersey, not only horizontally, but vertically it curls as well. If it's a jersey, it curls to the right side on the horizontal, and it curls to the wrong side on the vertical. So that's a big feature of this particular garment. Then we have these patches. Now, patches in this case are a different fabric. They are just a piece of cotton broadcloth. And there are three of them. One near the neckline, one towards the bottom, that's like a large rectangle. And where's the third one? I know you're here. Oh, on the sleeve. That's right. Kind of in the centering between the front and the back. So again, let's watch a little clip from that video of how you use some heat and bond to adhere them, and we'll talk about the stitching just a little bit. Right on there. And now I can just peel away that paper, and it leaves a little bit of glue. Let's take it off of here. These have been on here longer, so it looks different. That one hadn't quite set up yet. It'd be fine though. So once we adhere these to the front, then we're going to be sewing them, and they'll look like this. But let's get one of them, maybe even two of them, on this front piece. So here's the front, and this is the neckline. Okay, I think we can take a look at the garment. Right. Okay, so here's what this looks like. Let's get a good close-up of this patch. You can see that there are rows and rows of parallel stitches This patch is all raw edged. It can be placed, of course, anywhere in the garment that you want, or however many patches that you want. So what I've used is a double needle. I had that at one point, a twin needle, 2.5 width, so it's the narrowest one. And the only reason I used a twin needle is just to reduce the time in stitching all of these parallel rows. And when I say parallel, I wasn't very accurate about that. The idea is just to sew back and forth and back and forth. So you sew up one side, turn, come back down, and you can overlap some of the stitches, leave wider portions of the stitches. It doesn't really matter. But the idea of using a somewhat contrasting thread, in this case, I use gray on the pink so that it shows up. And you just sew it down. So the twin needle is really just for convenience and speed. If you use a single needle, no problem. It'll just take you twice as long. You can use a triple needle either, and then you can cut it even more. So those patches get sewn down anywhere. There's one, as I said, across the bottom, one on the sleeve, and one at the neck. Now, the whole garment is put together with what we call overlapping seam construction. And we use this seam construction a lot in, well, I shouldn't say a lot, but we do love this seam construction. We use it particularly on our rayon and wool boucle fabrics. Anything that doesn't ravel a lot, we like to just overlap the seam. And so we've included in the guide sheet of the Picasso top a sort of guide of which seam allowances get cut away, which seam allowances do not. I'm saying that, and I'm hoping I'm right. I'm right about that, Erin, aren't I? Okay, I thought so. Because when the seam allowance that is on the top of the overlap, you want to actually remove it and then leave the seam allowance of the underlapping piece. And so before you stitch them together, you actually sort of glue them together. And I found that even though we love Fusee web, it is our heart and soul of all the things that we glue around here. Actually, the material that is best for that technique is this double-sided sticky tape, which we get from Japan. It's like a masking tape in texture. And it is a tape. It's not like Fusee web, which is a web of glue. This is actually a very, very narrow, about a 1/16 of an inch wide, narrow tape. And this is going to stick better to the fleecy side or whichever side of the fabric better than the Fusee web does. So you glue the overlapping seam to the underlap seam. It's really easy construction. I love it. You can sew wherever you want to sew next to the raw edge. You can sew right next to the raw edge, or you can go a little bit of a distance from the raw edge. I like to actually sew at least 1/4 of an inch, 3/8 of an inch, because I like the fact that the seam will then curl and create some dimension. So overlapping construction, but you don't have very many seams. Now, I didn't do overlapping construction on the side seams, but definitely on these feature seams of the sleeve. And then, of course, the bottoms are raw edge, so you don't have to hem them. Now, this particular technique for the binding is very unique. And, I love to do a ready-to-wear binding. We do it over and over and over again on our ET, our swing tees, any sort of knit T-shirt. Our ready-to-wear binding technique is sort of signature to us, and we use it all the time. But I changed it up on this. Even though I cut the piece in the same way, in the same proportion, using that 7/8 rule, where the binding is 7/8 smaller than the circumference of the neck opening. But instead of cutting it 2 1/4 inches wide, it's cut 1/2 inch narrower than that at 1 3/4 inches. It's still connected into the round, overlapping at the back instead of a traditional seam, and it's still folded in half with the wrong sides together. But once you've done that, you open it back up, and instead of applying the binding to the right side of the garment, you're going to start with it on the wrong side of the garment so that wrong sides are together. And when you sew that seam, you're going to see that seam on the outside of the garment. So here's that first seam, about 3/8 of an inch. And then You've already folded the binding, so on that fold, you fold it to the back side, and then you can stitch in the ditch of this seam and catch the back side of the binding. So you see this curly, fluffy edge, which is all part of this ready-to-wear binding. Of course, you don't have to do it in fleece. You can do this technique in anything, particularly if it curls. But I just like the idea that you could see the fluffy part of the fleece against the nice smooth part of the outside of the fabric. So those are kind of the feature elements of the Picasso. And are there any questions?
Yeah, there's a lot of chat about this being some people's favorite project, and there's quite a few people here watching today that have made this and were part of So Confident in 2021. So
great.
It's a good sweatshirt, especially for this weather, like you said.
Right.
Would a beefy cotton knit be good to do these techniques on?
Yes, very much so. You wouldn't have the texture difference so much, but you'd have the curl and the general character, I think, would come across.
Does the Picasso top use the same sleeve as the Quincy jacket?
Yes. Well, not really. I mean, it looks like it, but the Quincy has a seam that comes on down, and this peplum part is actually installed separately. So on the Quincy, you don't have to make this particular right angle insertion. So it's a little different. But you're right in the sense that this is back from the normal shoulder seam. So it has that look. That's about its only similarity.
We do have the No Sew basting tape for sale on our website. The link is posted in the chat. So
Okay.
that is available.
The other notion that we have on our website that I really like, particularly for garments like this, where I'm doing things on the outside, I want the markings on the outside. Normally I'm marking things on the inside, but I like this Choco pen, which is an erasable pen. So I could mark that dart, for example, on the outside, and my iron will make it disappear. It also has its own little eraser at the other end. So this is another tool that I use a lot. I've tested a lot of erasable type pens. Some erase, some don't. This one really does.
And again, you guys can watch all of this and more on the Picasso Sweatshirt online workshop that we released a couple years ago, which is on sale today for $42.50. And these clips of the videos that we showed here in the live stream are part of that extensive video tutorial. So if you're interested in this particular sweatshirt and the Picasso, you can make this variation and have Linda teach you via video format how to make this sweatshirt.
Yeah, I go from start to finish on making the sweatshirt, including the pattern work from start to finish. I watched it again here, actually this morning a little bit, not completely, but it's an hour long and it's quite comprehensive. And yeah, I was on my game the day I filmed that one.
I don't think there are too many questions so far, so I think I've hit what I see.
All right, great. Always want to use a walking foot when you're working on fleece, or that even feed feature on your sewing machine. That's essential. But otherwise, it's really easy to sew. There's a certain loftiness to it. You just have to make sure that things are moving through the sewing machine at the same rate, top and bottom layer. But you don't need extra paper. You don't need extra throat plates. It's a easy fabric to sew, basically. This happens to be a different fabric. This is more like what the previous question was about. Excuse me. This would be a heavyweight cotton jersey. So don't forget about the pants because it's a great combination. So I've pulled out the 4 colors that we got in of this fleece. We have beautiful navy blue. I know you can't see the texture difference, but it's just the most beautiful fleece I've ever seen. I mean, this is not like the kind of fleece that you walk into the big box stores and see piled to the ceiling. This is the good stuff. This is the high fashion good stuff. So a beautiful navy blue, a gorgeous purple. What do we call this color? We call it plum. This is a chocolate brown. We're calling it umber. And a teal. We're calling it bottle green. So 4 colors. We only got it in 4 colors. This is what we have. Now, I put together some pieces of cotton poplin that could be used for the patches. And even though you only need 3 patches if you're going to make it just like the sample, but you could add more patches if you want to. So if you buy at least 2 yards, which is about, I think you need 2.5 yards for the Picasso top. But if you buy 2 yards of this, of any of these 4 colors, we're going to send you a piece of poplin that is 6 inches wide by the width of the fabric, which is 60 inches, and at no charge. So I chose colors that I thought would be really pretty and kind of interesting on these fleeces. So this is a kind of a chestnut color that I thought would be really pretty on the navy. It's kind of an unexpected color. This is a beautiful raspberry that can go on the plum. My favorite color on earth on the umber. And the navy, rather than putting it on the navy, I put it on the bottle green. So this one's a little more subtle, but just know that if you're going to order 2 yards of any one of these 4 fabrics, you're going to get that piece of fabric at no charge to you. So I think what's on sale today is the tutorial. I really hope you'll enjoy purchasing that tutorial and watching it. It's one of those things when you can sit down and like last night, I was watching something. I had my headphones in with my iPad while my husband was watching the national college football championships. You know, he didn't even know I was kind of looking at the television screen, but not really. So it's an easy watch, and it'll give you every technique that you need to know about how to make this sweatshirt. And of course, we have the Picasso pants or Picasso pattern on sale, and it does include the top and the bottom. It's a printed pattern. And we have the Maison on sale as well, which is a top and pants, and that's both printed and digital. So those are our 3 sale items this week.
So tell us a little bit more about this fleece. Is this the same fleece that was used from the Eureka top last year? And how would you describe the weight? Is it heavy? Is it light?
Oh, this is a different fleece. At least it's from a different source. I would consider this, though, very similar in weight to the one that we used for the Eureka last year. So it's on the heavy side of fleece. We've had other fleeces that have been lighter weight. For instance, this one, which we had in several colors. And one of the things about this fleece is that it had more texture to it. This one is very much like velvet on the inside. Very smooth. I know you can't tell, but so smooth. So it has a woolly velvet look to it. I would call this on the heavy side of fleece.
So would you call it sweatshirt fleece?
I call it sweatshirt fleece. If you're gonna order a sweatshirt from some high-end place like Paul Smith or Jason Wu or somebody like that, that's the fleece you're going to get.
What size sewing needle is recommended?
I'm checking her fleece right now. She has on a sweatshirt today.
What size sewing needle is recommended for fleece?
Oh, I don't think you have to beef that up at all. I use a 75 millimeter needle in my sewing machine almost all the time. I've switched from universals, which I sewed with forever, to metallics. Microtex, thank you. I knew it was an M. Microtex, 75 Microtex, and it would work fine. You could beef it up to an 80 if you want to, but you shouldn't have to. And I do have a sewing machine that has a built-in even feed feature, which I engage all the time. Now, that doesn't mean I don't own a separate walking foot, because sometimes those even feed features are not quite enough, and I might have to shift to an attachment, but I rarely have to do that. And I can't imagine that I would have to do it on this particular fleece. I haven't sewn on this fleece. We just got this in, but I don't see any issues. I always recommend that you cut something out, take some scraps, take it to the sewing machine, determine your stitch length, type of thread. You're going to use polyester thread on this walking foot, whether you need it or not. Work out your issues ahead of time before you really dig into it.
So just to clarify, these aren't kit options for the sweatshirt, but we are pairing the fleece with a cotton poplin if you buy a certain amount of yardage.
That's correct. No, this is not what we're calling a kit, although you're welcome to order thread, add thread to your order, which is all you would need. And if you need some of the sticky tape, you could add that to the order, but these are not kits per se. I mean, you could order 1 yard of this if you wanted to, which is our minimum order. But if you order 2 yards of any of those 4, then you get these cotton poplins at no charge, which is just my idea of the pairings. You may have something in your own stash that you like better, but the idea of this is the kind of fabric that I used on top of the fleece when I made the pink one.
So as far as yardage, to make a Picasso sweatshirt, it looks like for 45-inch wide fleece, for all sizes, you would need 2.5 yards. And for 60-inch wide fleece, for all sizes, you would need 2.25 yards.
Okay.
So that's
You're going to have to order 2.5 yards because our website is half-yard increments. Yeah. You might be able to get it out of 2 yards. I honestly haven't looked at that. But if we say 2.25, we generally mean 2.25. It would be a stretch, perhaps, to get it out of 2. But if you're thinking of making a matching set wherever the pants went, you can always make the Maison top to go with the Maison bottoms in the fleece. So there's nothing wrong with that look either.
Would faux suede work for sewing patches on the fleece?
Yes, yes. Honestly, there isn't anything you couldn't sew on it. Just as long as you can, it has good raw edges to it, and you can sew some parallel stitches and keep it down. I don't think it really matters what you sew on it. It could be faux suede. If you're thinking of something like ultra suede, that would be fine too. The thing about faux suedes is they don't generally ravel. I happen to like the raveled look of the patches on this, but if you don't care for that, that's fine. You can use anything that doesn't ravel. I mean, if you want to hem the garment, if you want to turn the edges of the patches, you can do all that. But the concept is really to have it as rough and raw as possible.
The fabric is smooth on one side and fuzzy on the other.
Right. So for instance, in this garment, this is the smooth side. This looks like traditional sweatshirt jersey. But the other side is a textured, soft pile. Different texture. That's what we're calling fleece. This is different than the kind of fleece that you see, as I'll say, in the big box stores again, which is soft and fleecy on both sides. This is fashion fleece, where you have 2 distinct surfaces.
Can you use regular seams, not overlapping seams?
Absolutely. The instructions for the Picasso include instructions for both.
And you would use the same fabric for Maison Joggers. You wouldn't, would you have to consider anything specifically in using this fabric for pants?
No, this fabric, it's 100% organic cotton. And I don't think you would have to, which is what, sweatsuit fabrics are made out of. So I don't think you have to consider really anything. I have not washed it to know if it shrinks much. Another reason why maybe 2.5 yards, if you're just making the top, is a good idea. You never know. You're probably going to pre-wash the fabric, and it might shrink, might not. Can't really tell you at this point.
Do we have other knits that would work for this sweatshirt?
Oh, I'm sure we do. We have actually coming up in the next few weeks, we're going to be talking about a new double-faced cotton knit that we have that's really unusual. That would work. I think on our website, it might be called that, double-faced cotton knit. We have the fabric that we used for the Japanese top for the January project would be a great fabric, which is also kind of an interesting texture on one side and a different texture on the wrong side, more of a cable knit. You can see the difference in the textures there. This would be a great fabric for it. And by the way, we have this fabric in 4 other colors. The kits for the Japanese top are black and emerald, but we have 4 other colors. We have blue, caramel, off-white, and can't remember the 4th color. Unless I'm dreaming, maybe we only have 3 colors. We're going to be introducing those as additional kits for the January project here in, I don't know, next couple of weeks or so. But that would be a great fabric. French terry. We have a lot of French terries in a couple of varieties. French terry would be great. As we said, the heavier cotton knits. What else do we have? Sweater knits would work. We're going to be talking about sweater knits coming up. I think if you just think slightly heavier than t-shirt knit, regular t-shirt knit, I think that's the character of this. These patches do get glued down, so they're not going to move on you. On some fabrics that might feel more slippery or something like that, but they are, with that heat and bond, they are actually glued down.
There's someone that's looking for a nice fleece for a chateau coat. Would this work for a raw edge? I think this would be nice fabric for a chateau, and you could use
make a great, yes, it would.
Overlapping seam technique.
Yeah, that would feel like a kind of a wrap, a soft wrap. It would be great. And you would see the wrong side of that on the collar as it turned back on the chateau. And the pocket, I'm trying to think, when I did the technique for this pocket, did I use the technique from the chateau coat? You sure could if I didn't. I honestly can't remember. But that has a technique in it. The chateau coat instructions have a technique in it of a raw edge slit pocket. Different shape pocket bag, but that wouldn't matter. You could cut it any shape you want.
And just to clarify again for those asking, this is 100% organic cotton, and it's 70 inches wide. It's quite wide.
Oh.
And so the fiber content is 100% cotton, so it doesn't have any spandex or anything else in it.
No. With 70 inches, I wonder if you could get it out of 2 yards. We could double check and verify that. It's possible.
Linda, what is your fabric and what size are you wearing?
My fabric is a sweater knit, just a textured sweater knit. It's hard to see, but there is a seam right here. That is the seam that's in the normal Picasso. This is a normal Picasso, I'll put it that way. One thing I did discover is that I'm wearing a small, and frankly, I wish I had a medium, it's one of the things that I sometimes forget to check. Sometimes if I go down a size in a garment, then my sleeves are too short, and these sleeves are too short. So be sure and check that. You can always, pin the tissue or the pattern together and put it on you. It's sort of hard to determine sometimes sleeve lengths when shoulder seams are not at the shoulder, which this is not. So it would require probably taking the pattern, kind of putting it on in paper and checking the sleeve length. Because next time I make this in a small, I will lengthen the sleeve. In a medium, it would have fit fine. And then I have my Picasso pants on in a black ponte knit.
All right, I think that's all the questions I'm seeing.
Okay.
Just a reminder, everyone, the sale for our cozy fleece things is live at thesewingworkshop.com. And you can also purchase these Picasso Sweatshirt online workshop. And don't forget to join the Japonesque top online class. If you still want to join us this month for So Confident, you still can. And do you want to just give the reminder for current So Confident members about February?
Yes. So February, we are making the bamboo top, which is this. It has this overlay, single welt pocket, a band front on both fronts, has some interesting pleating on the back. There's one at the shoulder and then pleats down the side. So there's a lot to learn in this project. And if you're a So Confident member, you received an email yesterday, I believe, that we have released the first 2 kits, which are 2 prints, sort of a worldly approach. There's one that's called a Venice print, and the other one is Tokyo. So you can pre-order your kit now.
Awesome. I think that's all, everyone. Thank you for joining.
Yeah, thank you so much. Hope you enjoy your week. I hope it's the kind of week where you can stay inside and sew, which is what I'm going to do. And I'll see you next week.